my paternal grandfather, he's the one that moved here from Pocomoke, Maryland, and he brought his family in, and he opened a barbershop. Now, I don't know if it's the first barbershop, first black barbershop, or was one of the, it was one of the first black barbershops in that time. And one thing about a barbershop, it's not only a place to get your hair cut. It's a place that it will cause their community to be vital, because people will come there and they would gather there to talk about different things. And so the barbershop that we owned became like a pillar of the community. Yeah. I mean, you know, we just get a barbershop now, you go place to get a haircut, you get an appointment. But when you got one as a pillar of the community, that's where people gather. And if you wanted to know anything about anyone in the community, ask the barbershop, the barber. He knows them personally, from grandfathers down to, I like to say, infants. So that was great for me to becoming a barber, yes, and I like that.
What was your grandfather's name?
My great-grandfather, the one that started the barbershop in 1899, was Marion Cottman. And he had 4 boys, 2 girls, and one girl named Cordelia, who was born in, 1099, had a son, and they named him Harlan. And Harlan became the grandfather, Marion's, you know, his special one. I'll put it like that. He kind of loved his grandson. So Dad stuck with him, and he became a barber as well. So when I came along, and well, Dad was born in 1915, then when he was 19 years old in 1934, I was born. And when I turned 15, I made a career decision to stay and work with him in the barbershop, because he taught me one thing. He said, well, Vern, whatever career you decide, make sure you're the boss. And that sounded real good to me, so that's why I stayed to be a barber. And I did that up until 2012. I had no idea that I would be the one that 112, 113-year-old barbershop business, I didn't believe that I would be the hinge that the doors of that business would kind of swing on. But I'm the last one. In 2012, I had a problem with my back, and my wife said, I think it's enough. And I thought I was going to lay back and take care, you know, I guess, settled. But we got this calling, and my dream to open a church. And I guess most people would say that comes from God. That call comes from God. So my wife and I left my little church up on the corner, and we just came out, you know, because that was the calling.
What's the name of your church?
Blancia Rose Faith and Healing Chapel. Blancia, because that's my mother's first name. Rose, because it's her mother's first name. And it's a ministry of healing. And we begin that church at our home. Just my wife, our daughter, and the 2 grandchildren. First service until we rented this place here. And that was 7 years ago. And now we are going on, hopefully, to build a church. And that brings me to a member of my family that's on my maternal grandmother, Letitia Brown. And she had a brother named Kinsey, and he built most of the churches, black churches. I don't know if you all know what a black church is or not, but most of them are brick or white or whatever. But nevertheless, he built most of the black churches in this area. It'll be 6 or 7 of them. And means we are here now renting, but it's in my vision to build a church. We're making that play right today. In fact, we're talking to some people. Don't have the money yet, But that's the way you build a church. It's got to be built on faith, not money. Money doesn't build a church. Faith builds a church. And that's what we're working on, faith. And one day we will have this church, but we won't have it in the area here. We've been told by some of the officials of the town that we can't have a church in the business district because you can't get any revenue from a church. So we do plan to move out of town and build it. So that's my next big venture. Okay.
So you were born and raised here in Crisfield.
Born and raised in Crisfield, born down South 4th Street in my great-grandmother's house, you know, because we couldn't go to the hospitals at that time. And I was born there on South 4th, and then later when Dad and Mom, we moved up on North 4th Street, and then we moved up to Richardson Avenue on the corner where I was raised. And that from 17 on, I lived there. But yeah, all my life been right here. And I think I'm going to spend it here.
What was it like growing up here, and how have things either changed or remained the same over time? What kinds of changes have you seen in your life over time here?
As a colored person, that's what they called me then. I was colored people, or Negro. But now I'm an African American. But I've seen changes with different ones in positions that were not allowed when I was growing up. But the sentiment of some people hasn't changed yet when it comes to recognizing me. We had just a little, that's where I've been today, if I might add that. We saw a house that we want to buy. And we presented all of the necessary documents and everything, and then they said, well, we need an extra $5,000. And I says, my wife says, well, I have a relative that said they would loan it to me. And they said that I would need to see their bank statement. I said, no, you can't call them in for that. But the idea was this, that because we were a couple of color, that we don't have any money unless we're drug dealers. And I kind of resent that. And I was kind of upset coming down the road because I hate for people to talk to me in that manner, that I can't have an extra dollar in my pocket unless I sell drugs. But nevertheless, we have been saving, we have been putting things aside, and we had the extra money. But I hate for anyone to question me like that. And that's one thing that'll bother me, because after a person who has been like in his 60s, when I went through the sit-ins and watched with the fire hoses and all of that up to the college up there, they ran us all back over the track. And when you're going through those kind of things, and it still stays in my memory that I may be here and they may smile and talk with me, but they want me to stay in a place that's a little lower than what other human beings want to live. But I've seen a lot of change. You got the schools, you got people in government, you have them periodically going around and making, I think they're making their presence noticeable, not only just be noticeable, to be productive in what they do. So I believe that's my greatest, I think it's my greatest teaching, because we're not only people of color, but we do have some good ideas as to how some things to be run. And when we get in those positions, they find out that we do have those. They understand that we can produce some good, decent purposes for things happening. And I kind of like that. That's probably the biggest change I've seen.
Do you think some of the efforts that young people are making will help things over time? Do you think things will improve from here going forward?
I have a 17-year-old grandson, and with him not knowing or not being able to understand the facts that I had to live with, you understand, and he feels as though that era of time and those things that happened then is over with, but it's not. It's not over with yet. It's been covered up, and I feel sorry for him in a way, and that's the only thing I am concerned about our younger people now, that they feel as though, okay, I can do it if I want to, and so they won't do anything now. Now, we did it because we were not allowed to do it, so we pushed to do it to show that we could do it, but they don't have to push anymore. So they get to a certain point, and they're to find something, a wall that will stop them. And that's the worst thing I know about our younger ones today. They don't even believe that things were like we teach them or tell them. So, but like you said, it's not as bad as it was, but it's in the minds of some people. But I hope they learn, and I hope it doesn't mess them up that bad. But I have so many of my boys that have cut their hair when they were babies. They're now in prison. And when they go to prison, this seems like where the world system wants them to be. Understand? But, so we got to have, I'm talking to him, and he's, I hope he's listening. Yeah, he's got his first little job at the hospital, and it seems to be, on a good note, but we don't never know what we do when they step aside. So we're teaching, and we're keeping an eye on them. Those that we can help, we will help. But then again, everyone has the ability to choose. That's one thing that God put into us, our ability to choose. So we have to make a choice as to what we want to do.
So Pastor Cottman, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was that there are some people in the community who feel that the work with regard to racial justice has already been done, and it seems that you feel that there is still more work to be done. Is there a way that you incorporate that into your work as a pastor, or feel that you would like to do that?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was growing up, there were two very important entities in our life. It was the fact that a village, it takes a village to raise a kid, and there was a spiritual life. If you lived in anyone's house on a Sunday morning, everybody got up and went to church. You went to a Bible study, church, or that's the best for the kids to do. We did all of that. But for us to make a difference now, they don't have a spiritual life. They're not allowed, they're not even taught to come to church because the parents doesn't come. So that's a very important part that's missing in their lives. They don't have God in their life. And that's needed in everyone's life. I mean, no one can see him, no one knows where he is, but it's something in that we have to live with a thing called faith and our hope as well. And without that, I think a group of people are going to be lost. But as the church, we have some, and they come and they go. If it's not fitting into their lifestyle. See, no one wants to live the way God wants us to live. So that's going to be one hard thing for me to try to do, try to make a difference in their lives without God. And I don't think I can ever do that. But this is what I'm going to try to do. Some will listen, and some will listen for a while, then they just drift away. I don't know if we're going to be able to make a difference with the church. I don't know.
So when you mentioned making a difference, it reminds me about your mother and the movies. Is that a story you'd be willing to tell us?
Yes, well, in the 60s as well, my best friend, Anthony Ward, he was the mortician. He went away to be a mortician. He came home, and then he ran for councilman, and he won. But after he'd been there a couple of years, it interfered with his business a lot, so he asked my mother, would she take his tenure until the end of his term? And she did. And then when her term ended and she ran again, she come short of votes. She didn't get the black votes because they looked at her and they said, well, she's one of us. She don't know what to do, how to tell us how to live. See, and people have that type of thoughts now in their head, you understand? But then again, one more time, we have 4 movies in town here. And, of course, the blacks would watch them up in the balconies. So I got a white friend. He went and bought, the red tickets for us and the blue ones for the white. So we got 2 blue tickets, and we give one to my mother and one to one of the high school boys. And they walked in and showed the blue ticket, went and sat down. They started the movie. That was 1968. And all of a sudden they stopped and turned the lights on. And the chief of police came in. Albert Rich was the chief of police at that time. And he came in and said, you're under arrest. And I had already talked to Albert Rich. I said, now listen, there's not going to be none of this foot on the neck. I told him that from it. So they arrested her because they all knew her. The man that owned the theater, his wife, and her would do the March of Dimes. Just coming up this March, they would do all that March of Dimes then. But once that happened, they closed every movie in Crisfield. And there's never been a movie since because we were not allowed to sit downstairs. So we don't have any more movies in Crisfield. And so that was 1968. I had just gotten home not too long. I came home in 62 because I went in the Army. I missed the Freedom Riders the first time they came, but from then on I was hooked up. I don't know if you've ever heard of a sit-in or ever been in one. It's a bad situation. And I can remember I went to Annapolis to do one, and after they took all of those football boys, big guys, 265 pounds, 6'4", hitting them down. Women like you, like, just scratching and throwing coffee on them. And when I got there, my turn to go, there was a stick. And I reached down and got it, but the cop saw me. So he pulled me outside and wouldn't let me go. He said, you can't carry that. And I said, yeah, they're fighting. But that was the wrong way. That King wanted to do it, but that's hard to do. But I'm glad that part of me is over. I don't know what kind of fight they're going to go on. I know they're doing some things now, and just like the Capitol thing the other day, I remember something being in something like that, and I don't know how those people are going to make out. It looks like they're going to be in trouble. It looks that way. But I don't know if it takes anything like that again or not. I don't know. I don't know how we're going to keep this thing going to make a progress in the black life. I know they say the Black Lives Matter, but when you go to make a move, there are so many blocks. You got the walls you got to knock down before you get there. But I think there's going to be a way because we believe in God, and God knows what He's doing, and I do believe something's going to break.
Is there anything that I haven't asked about that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've shared about the church I'm going to build, right? This is my great vision now. I'm planning on doing that, and that's like the greatest thing I have right now. So I'm doing it now because it's in my blood. My great uncle, he built churches, and I said no one else had built one since him. So maybe it's left out to me. You know, I'm 86 now, but I'm still going to build a church. I have a lot of friends. They say, well, Vern, you going to buy a house and you're going to build a church and you're 86 years old? I said, well, that's what the word is telling me to do. Now, I don't know why I'm doing it, but for some reason I have that calling to do it. So I think that's my height of my ambition.
Well, we want to thank you for being with us today. I'm going to post the links for people to make a donation to the church. And again, we're very grateful that you spent your time with us today for this program with Crisfield Arts Entertainment District.